Slide, Understanding the National Disability Insurance Scheme, NDIS. Video series. Video 6, Reasonable and Necessary Exercise, an AFDO Disability Loop Workshop.
Image of 3 people at a table having a discussion with a thought bubble above them.
A view of presenter standing in front of the room.
I'm going to give you some scenarios. They're asking you as planners for certain supports, and your job is to decide what you will fund and what you won't, and why. Okay, so think about the things we've learnt about what the NDIS will fund, what it has to be, and yeah. So make a start, but when the afternoon tea comes, we'll just take a break and then we'll come back and resume this if we haven't finished. So yeah, have a chat. So we'll just pass that around, and if that's okay, we'll start with the first group on my left, Kevin's group. Could you read the card scenario, because everyone has different people, and then let us hear what you decided. Now, who were your 2 people that you had?
We had Athena
and
Stacey.
Stacey. Let's start with Athena, because Stacey gets a bit of discussion. Yeah. So maybe Ahua can hold the microphone and whilst you do the reading. Okay. So let's hear Athena's story. Yeah.
Image of exercise card being read.
Athena is 64 years old and a double amputee. Her son is frustrated that he has to translate for Athena all the time because she cannot speak English. Her son wants the NDIS to pay for Athena's English lessons or provide interpreters for her medical appointments.
So her son's asking for English lessons or an interpreter?
Yep.
Yeah. And what did you decide as planners?
Well, we decided that the NDIS would pay. Now, we didn't discuss this in the group, but I had a little bit of a thought about it. They might pay for interpreters for the medical appointments. Now, if she's 64 years of age, to pay for English lessons, that could work out to be very expensive, and it might not be fitting the criteria of good value for money. So maybe they might just opt to pay for interpreters on those occasions when she's got a medical appointment.
Okay, so with some of these scenarios, there's a little bit of you have to make or fill in the gaps. There's not always the full story. You can fill that in. But with Athena's, it just says medical appointments. Does her need for English lessons or interpreters apply to her disability?
Well, depends on what the rest of her life is like. Now, she might only socialise, I'm assuming she might only socialise, say, within the Greek community, right? So she mightn't need English for social reasons. Maybe her, the mandatory one might be just for the medical.
Okay, let me put it another way. Her disability is double amputee. Is that what's causing her to not have good English?
No.
No. So she doesn't have good English, but it's not due to, her disability is not that. So they would not pay for English lessons or English interpreters because it's not disability related. Whether she can afford it through another scheme, that's a different issue. But the point is she's young enough to get into the scheme. She does have a disability, but what she's asking for is not disability related.
So who's going to pay for the medical?
Well, that's a different issue. That's not a question for the NDIS. It might be that there's other schemes that she could access. So it's not about how does she get it, it's whether it's an NDIS support. Does that make sense? Yes. There might be healthcare systems, there might be other ways of getting it, but it's not a reasonable and necessary support under NDIA. Does that help?
Image of exercise card being read.
Stacey is 16 years old and uses an electric wheelchair full time. Because she goes on lots of dates, she wants the NDIS to pay for a makeup artist to get her ready because she can't do it herself. She also wants the NDIS to pay for someone to assist her in trying on new outfits.
So she's asking for two things.
Yeah.
A makeup artist and someone to help her try on new clothes.
Yeah. Now, we considered it and we decided that the NDIS would not pay for the makeup artist because it's not reasonable and it's probably nothing to do with her disability.
Okay, let's assume she can't apply makeup herself. She's in a wheelchair. Yes, that wasn't implied, but she can't put on makeup herself. Okay?
Then it's related.
And so it's disability related that she cannot apply makeup herself
Yeah.
and she can't try on clothes herself.
Well, clothing is an essential, makeup isn't. You know, it comes down to the necessity thing.
Do other 16-year-olds put on makeup when they go on dates? Yes.
Well, I didn't when I was 16 years old. No, we can't be sexist anymore.
No. But is it reasonable to expect that a person without disability might put on makeup to go on a date when they're 16? Is it a pretty normal convention in society?
Yeah, I guess it is.
Yeah.
Yep.
And trying on new clothes?
Oh, well, we decided that was fair and reasonable.
Okay.
Because that is very much related to her disability and clothing is an absolute essential.
So I imagine there's a few people in the room here that wear makeup as an everyday activity.
Yes.
Do you get a makeup artist to do it?
No.
You do it yourself. So makeup is a norm for a lot of people, but makeup artists aren't. So the people in the room that wear makeup here may get a makeup artist. Maybe they're going to their own wedding or a special occasion, but a makeup artist is not what they'll fund. They would have funded maybe a support worker to put on makeup because everyday activities of wearing makeup could be seen as normal every day, same opportunities, but the makeup artist, it would be the value for money. Is she going to have better dates because she has a makeup artist? Not likely. Do you see the distinction?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's how they're likely to rule on that one. Yes.
I was wondering if this, what's normal and ordinary. So this one person, generally is normal for specific but what if it's a transgender or these one to one is that the same right to choose to
Absolutely. The issue is, think of it compared to someone that doesn't have the disability and they want the same thing, or they want to do the same thing.
Yeah, so it doesn't have to be normal as such.
That's right. It doesn't have to be normal, but it has to be what I was just saying in terms of everyday society. You'd see a 16-year-old wearing makeup or a 40-year-old. The issue is comparing it to an able-bodied person, I guess. Yeah. Good, thank you. Let's go to the next group around.
Image of exercise card being read.
Yuki and Pootie. Okay, let's start with Yuki.
Okay, Yuki is 5 years old and is starting school this year. His mum wants an integration aid for him at school and he is deaf. And as he is deaf, the integration aid must know sign language. His mum is worried the school won't find anyone suitable, so wants the NDIS to pay for interpreters instead.
What were your thoughts?
Well, we all immediately said, well, there can't be any overlap between the education system and the disability funding system.
The NDIS and education, that's right.
So the integration aid would probably be provided by the funded by the education system.
That's right.
But can't you get interpreters under the NDIS?
So the fact that yes, you can get interpreters under the NDIS, but if it's in an education setting, that's the education's obligation. So the NDIS will not do what is the obligation of other things like mainstream services, like education. Whether that school provides what they're obliged to provide, that's a different story, but it's their obligation to provide an integration aid that can give the support to Yuki that Yuki needs, i.e. someone that knows Auslan. So if they don't, then the mother can fight that on the other channels, but the NDIS won't provide that in an education setting.
Okay.
Okay, good. Thank you. Let's hear about Pootie.
Image of exercise card being read.
Pootie is 53 and has a degenerative eye condition. He can still see but will likely lose all his vision within 5 years. Pootie's daughter wants him to learn Braille and how to navigate with a cane or an assistance animal. This is expensive, so Pootie hopes the NDIS will pay for this.
Yeah. So
he wants to learn Braille
yep.
and how to navigate with a cane or an assistance animal.
And you can see all right now, but it's going to get worse. So what did you as planners decide Pootie would get?
Well, obviously we want to just give them everything they're asking for.
That's what a lot of people say. I just want to give him everything. Yes.
I would say learning Braille will assist Pootie in the long term, so it's a good investment. I don't know.
Yeah. Anyone else in your group want to speak up?
Sorry, I was part of the room. I just
Sure.
We talked about early intervention, that it's an early intervention.
Yeah, it's an early intervention. All of that is early intervention. He doesn't need the assistance dog or a cane now. All of what he's identified is early intervention. And yes, if he gets those skills now, he's less likely to rely on guides, supports, etc. So that's a classic case of early intervention. Thank you. Let's hear from the last group.
Image of exercise card being read.
Okay, we had Davina. Davina is 8 years old with autism. Her dad thinks an iPad would help her with social communication. He finds an app called Chat Time for Kids. It will help Davina but costs $50. Davina's dad wants the NDIS to pay for the iPad and the app.
Okay, so Dad's asking for two things for Davina.
Yeah.
As planners, what did you decide?
We decided with autism, social communication would be a goal of Davina, and we would think that it would be reasonable to provide an iPad for her to communicate with other people, especially with autism, as a lot of children with autism don't like to actually do that face-to-face interaction. Mm-hmm. So we thought the communication via technology would be ideal, and the app being Chat Time for Kids would also help that social communication. So we said yes to both.
Okay, I would dare say that, well, I will say you're half right.
Oh, good.
The app is, let's assume it's an autism-specific app. It's just a made-up app. Mm-hmm. Yes, but because it could be expected, normal in quotes, let's say,
yep.
that a lot of families would fund iPads for their children, that they won't fund iPads. They will fund the app if it's a disability-specific thing, just like they won't fund a laptop for me, but they'll fund the talking program on it.
Okay.
Because whilst not every family can afford an iPad, it's a normal enough thing, a commonly enough thing that a lot of families do provide it.
Okay, yep.
Good.
Not a problem, that makes sense.
Image of exercise card being read.
Rebecca is 22 years old and loves going to her Pilates class every week. It is expensive but worthwhile. Rebecca's mum needs to help her at the class but doesn't want to anymore. Rebecca wants the NDIS to pay for weekly Pilates classes and a support person to help her to attend the class. We found this one a bit difficult because we sort of don't know what her disability is.
Let's say her mum helps her, maybe her mum helps her get down onto the ground or gives her instructions. Let's say her mum helps her because of her disability.
Yeah. And we sort of thought that. We thought, well, obviously if it's something that her mum is helping her and it is disability support, then we would say yes, the NDIS should provide someone to assist her in the class.
Yeah, okay. What about, she wants the NDIS to pay for Pilates classes?
Yes, we wouldn't be saying yes to the Pilates classes.
And why is that?
We don't know how the Pilates classes are actually helping her disability.
Let's say she just enjoys them, she gets some good stuff out of it. You're quite right, the NDIS will not pay for things that other people have to pay for. So gym fees, university fees, the things that people have to pay for if they don't have a disability, like those, the NDIS won't fund. But to participate at a gym or a swimming pool or a Pilates class through a support worker is exactly the sort of thing that an NDIS plan can cover, that would be considered reasonable.
Okay.
Good.
Ramona,
Yes.
it's Emma, I've got a question about that. Would the NDIS, obviously if they're going to pay for the support person, would they pay for the support person's cost for going to the Pilates class?
So the NDIS support, the person would be there to support the worker, not to do the Pilates themselves. So they'd be there to help the person or direct them. So in terms of that, if they're doing the class themselves, then that person would probably have to pay for it. But if it's just to be there to support the person, then they really shouldn't be charged fees. Now, I think, once again, it's a bit of a grey area, but there's often, for example, if I want to go to a concert and I want a support worker to take me, there's a thing called a companion card where the companion gets in free and I just buy a ticket for me. So the companion card applies to a lot of places, but if it was that scenario of the Pilates class, it would be expected the support worker's there only to support the person. But if they want to do the class as well, they could pay for the class themselves.
Thank you.
Yeah. And did you have a third person, lucky last?
We did have a third person. We didn't actually get time to discuss this one.
Well, let's read it out and we'll do it as a group.
Yep.
Image of exercise card being read.
Stavros is 46 years old and crashed his motorcycle in Geelong and now has quadriplegia. His auntie says he should contact the NDIS to get support. Stavros needs personal care, a wheelchair, physio, home modifications and grief counselling.
Okay, so Stavros is 46, crashed his motorbike, has a lot of needs from counselling, therapies and modifications, etc. Does anyone want to hazard a guess? Exactly. It's all covered in Victoria, it's under TAC. Now, the Transport Accident Commission and other states may have similar programs, but because it was in Geelong, that's a Victorian city, so he would be covered under TAC for all those things and would not get covered by NDIS because they don't duplicate. Yeah.
Okay.
Has that exercise helped you understand reasonable and necessary a little bit more? Yeah.
Yes.
Good. It's interesting. So, great. Well, thank you for doing that. I might ask Jess if she can collect the cards later on. But great.
Production of the AFDO Disability Loop, Understanding the NDIS video series, has been made possible with funding from the Victorian Government. AFDO would like to thank video participants and those who provided feedback on video drafts for their contributions. Video services, audio description and captioning by Angry Chair. Auslan interpreting by Auslan Services. Remember to visit disabilityloop.org.au.